Amara Johnson sold flowers outside the Riverton Grand Hotel every single day after school. She was 9 years old, invisible to the wealthy guests, sweeping past in tailored suits and glittering heels. Just another poor black child on the sidewalk, holding out roses to people who never made eye contact. But Amara wasn't as invisible as they thought. No one knew she spoke fluent Russian. Her mother had been from Moscow. Before the accident that took both her parents 2 years ago, she had made sure her daughter learned the language perfectly. "Knowledge is power, moya devichka," her mother used to say, "my little girl." Now it was just Amara and her grandmother, barely scraping by. Rent overdue, electricity bills stacked on the kitchen table, so Amara sold flowers. And she watched, and she listened. She had seen the hotel's owner only twice, Adrian Park. 34, brilliant, ruthless, cold. The kind of man who walked past people like her without even noticing they existed. He owned half the city, casinos, real estate, nightclubs, built his empire from nothing, trusted no one, needed no one. At least that's what people believed. Every evening his routine was identical. 5:50 p.m., leave his penthouse office. 6 p.m., enter the black sedan waiting at the curb. 6:15 p.m., arrive home. Precision meant control. Control meant survival. But on a Tuesday evening at exactly 5:47 p.m., Amara heard 3 words that made her blood turn to ice. "When he opens the door." The words were spoken in Russian. Adrian's head of security, a man named Viktor Mikhailov, stood near the entrance with 2 other guards. They were smoking, laughing quietly. They thought no one around them understood. They were wrong. Amara understood every word. "Exactly at 6, Viktor said in Russian. "When he opens the door, boom." One of the other guards made a small explosion gesture with his hands. They laughed. Amara looked at the sleek black car parked at the curb. Her hands started shaking. Someone was going to die, and she was the only one who knew. 17 minutes earlier. Upstairs in his penthouse office, Adrian Park stood by the window overlooking the city he had conquered. 34 years old, self-made, unforgiving. His phone buzzed. "Car is ready, sir," said Daniel, his driver. Adrian checked his watch. 5:31 p.m. Perfect. Predictability was safety. His chief of security, Victor, appeared in the doorway. "Tomorrow's meeting with the Singapore investors is confirmed." "Good," Adrian said without looking up. "Anything else?" "No, sir." "Then don't waste my time." Victor's jaw tightened slightly, but he left. Adrian gathered his briefcase. 17 minutes until departure. Outside, on the street corner, life was very different. "Fresh roses, sir. Only $3. Ignored. "Beautiful flowers, ma'am?" Ignored. She had sold 4 flowers since 3:30 p.m. $12. Enough for dinner, not enough for the electricity bill. Her stomach growled, but she smiled anyway. Invisible meant people didn't censor themselves around her. Invisible meant secrets slipped, and now she had heard something she was never supposed to hear. 5:35 p.m., 15 minutes left. Amara's mind raced. She had to warn someone. But who? The guards were involved. Hotel staff wouldn't believe a street kid. And Adrian Park? He didn't even see her when he walked by. But her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "You may be small, Amara, but you are fierce." Amara looked at the car. 15 minutes. She edged closer to the entrance, pretending to rearrange her flowers. The guards continued in Russian. "The device is under the driver's seat. Remote detonation. And if he survives, we have a backup plan." Victor tapped something under his jacket. Amara's stomach twisted. This wasn't random. This was professional, organized, planned. And she was just 9 years old, with a basket of roses. She spotted Daniel, the driver, standing near the car. He looked kind, normal, not like the others. She approached carefully. "Excuse me, sir?" He looked down, surprised. "Yes?" "Do you speak Russian?" "No. Why?" She swallowed. The guards, they were talking about something bad, about the car. Daniel frowned slightly. Listen, kid, I don't have time for games. I'm not playing. They said when he opens the door. Listen, he said, not unkindly, just dismissively. Try selling to the tourists. He turned away. No one would listen. She checked the hotel clock. 5:41 p.m. 19 minutes until Adrian Park walked into a car that might explode, and she was the only one who knew. Her hand shook so badly she almost dropped the basket. What could one invisible little girl possibly do?
Amara stopped thinking. She started acting. If no one would listen politely, she would make them listen. She marched through the revolving doors of the Riverton Grand Hotel like she belonged there. The marble floors gleamed beneath her worn sneakers. Crystal chandeliers glittered above her tangled braids. Within seconds, a uniformed hotel security guard stepped in front of her. No soliciting. "I need to speak to Mr. Park," Amara said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's important." The guard actually laughed. "Mr. Park doesn't meet with children selling flowers. It's about his safety. Out now." "I heard his guards speaking Russian. They're planning—" The guard grabbed her shoulder and escorted her toward the doors. "I said, out." The glass doors closed behind her. 5:49 p.m. 11 minutes. Her eyes burned, but she refused to cry. She looked up at the tall building. Adrian Park was somewhere up there, completely unaware that in 11 minutes he might be dead. Think. She couldn't reach him inside, but she could reach him when he walked out. She would have one chance, and if the guards realized she understood them, if they saw her as a threat, she pushed the thought away. 5:52 p.m. She positioned herself right near the exit, right where he would have to pass. Her whole body trembled, but she stayed. 5:56 p.m. 4 minutes left. The hotel doors opened. Adrian Park stepped out. Tall, immaculate suit, expression carved from ice. Phone pressed to his ear. "Close the deal at 12%, he was saying calmly. Daniel straightened and opened the back door of the black sedan. The car. The one with a device under the driver's seat. Amara's heart pounded so hard she thought she might faint. "Mr. Park!" He didn't even look at her. He kept walking. "Mr. Park, please don't get in that car." He brushed past her like she was a piece of furniture. 3 steps from the door. "They're gonna hurt you!" Without thinking, Amara grabbed his sleeve. Everything froze. Adrian looked down slowly at the small hand clutching his jacket. His eyes were cold. "Let go." "Please," she whispered desperately, "you have to listen." "Security," he said calmly. One of the guards started walking toward them, the same guard who had been laughing in Russian. Amara's words tumbled out. "They said when he opens the door, boom, there's something under the seat. They're watching right now." "Daniel," Adrian said, already pulling his arm free, "handle this." He turned back toward the car. 2 steps away. Amara made a decision. She spoke in perfect Russian, the exact words she had heard. "When he opens the door, boom." Adrian froze. He turned back slowly. His eyes were different now. "What did you just say?" "Device under the driver's seat, remote detonation, backup planned if he survives." The Russian was flawless. Her mother's voice lived inside her pronunciation. Silence fell like a curtain. Adrian studied her, really studied her. "Where did you hear that?" "Your guards, Victor and the others. They think no one understands." Daniel's face went pale. Adrian looked at the car, then at Victor, who stood across the street watching, then back at the little girl holding a basket of roses. "Daniel," Adrian said quietly, deadly calm. "Code red. Lock down the building." Within seconds, trusted members of his security team poured out of the hotel, not Victor's men, but others. Victor stopped walking. His hand froze halfway inside his jacket. "Don't," Adrian called out. "You move, you confirm everything." The street began to clearing. Sirens wailed in the distance.
Adrian looked down at Amara. What time did they say? 6 o'clock, when you always get in. He checked his watch. 5:59 p.m. 2 minutes. 5:59 p.m. Police arrived. The bomb squad rolled in. Victor made his choice. He ran. He got 6 steps before Adrian's men tackled him to the pavement. The other guards tried to scatter. None made it far. Amara found herself wrapped in a blanket, sitting on the curb as professionals swarmed the black sedan. For the first time, Adrian Park sat beside her, at eye level. "What's your name?" "Amara." "How old are you?" 9. "You speak Russian?" "My mom taught me." He nodded slowly. "You saved my life today." She swallowed. "I just didn't want someone to get hurt." Across the street, the bomb squad leader approached. "Sir, there was a device under the driver's seat. Remote detonation. It would have been catastrophic." Silence. Adrian looked at Amara, the invisible girl, the one everyone ignored. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You're the bravest person I've ever met." Amara finally started crying. Not from fear, from relief, because someone had listened, and because she had been right. 2 minutes. That's all it took to change everything.
Amara had never seen a room like this before. Adrian Park's private office on the 20th floor overlooked the entire city. Floor-to-ceiling windows, polished wood, quiet power. She sat stiffly on the edge of a leather chair, her basket of roses placed carefully beside her. Next to her sat her grandmother, Mrs. Eleanor Johnson, nervous, proud, overwhelmed. "Baby, you should have come home," her grandmother whispered for the 3rd time. "You could have gotten hurt." "I couldn't," Amara said softly. "Someone would have died." The door opened. Adrian entered with Daniel. Both men looked exhausted, but different, less untouchable. Victor and the other guards had confessed. "My competitors paid him $500,000, Adrian said evenly. "He recruited 3 others. The plan was clean, simple. It would have worked." His gaze moved to Amara. "If not for you." Amara looked down at her hands. "I just heard them talking." "You heard them. You understood them, and instead of running home where you would be safe, you risked your life to warn a stranger." He paused. "A stranger who walked past you every day without seeing you." The room fell silent. Mrs. Johnson squeezed her granddaughter's hand. "Sir, you don't owe us anything." "I owe you everything." His tone wasn't dramatic. It was absolute. "Your granddaughter saved my life. That creates a bet I cannot ignore." He slid a folder across the desk. Mrs. Johnson hesitated before opening it. Her hands began shaking. "This is the deed to a 3-bedroom apartment, paid in full. Safe neighborhood, good schools." Tears filled her eyes instantly. "Mr. Park, we can't accept this." "You can, and you will." He looked at Amara. "And she will attend the best private school in the city, full scholarship, through university, whatever she chooses to study." "That's too much," Mrs. Johnson whispered. "It's not enough." For the first time, Adrian's voice cracked. "I walked past her for months, saw a street child, saw someone beneath my notice." He met Mrs. Johnson's eyes. "She saw a human being in danger. That's not just bravery, that's character." Mrs. Johnson began crying openly. "There's more," Adrian said quietly. "I want to establish a trust fund for her future, college, opportunities, anything she dreams of." Mrs. Johnson could barely speak. "Why?" she whispered. Adrian walked toward the window. "Because she reminded me that I've been wrong about almost everything that matters." He turned back. "I built my empire believing trust was weakness, that emotions were liabilities, that people were either tools or threats." He looked at Amara. "And a 9-year-old girl proved me wrong." 1 week later, Adrian stood alone in his office. Security had been completely restructured.
background checks redone, every employee reviewed. Trust had been shattered and rebuilt carefully. But that wasn't what kept him awake at night. What haunted him was how close he had come, not just to death, but to dying as the man he had become. Cold, dismissive, arrogant. A man who needed a child to scream to break through his walls. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Daniel stepped inside. "Sir, someone's here to see you." Amara stood in the doorway, backpack on, nervous. "I'm sorry to bother you. I just wanted to say thank you for the apartment and the school. Grandma says I should write a letter, but I wanted to say it in person." Something tightened painfully in Adrian's chest. "You're not bothering me. You never will." She sat carefully in the chair. "How's the new apartment?" Her face lit up. "I have my own room. There's a park nearby. Grandma hasn't cried in 2 years. Happy tears." He smiled. A real one. Then she grew serious. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why did you help us so much? Most people would just say thank you and forget." He thought for a long time before answering. "Because you didn't just save my life. You saved who I could still become." She tilted her head. "I don't understand." "I spent years believing caring about people was foolish, that power was all that mattered." He looked directly at her. "Then someone who had every reason to ignore me risked everything because it was the right thing to do. You reminded me what matters." Amara smiled. "You're a good person." He shook his head softly. "I'm trying to be, because of you." Without hesitation, she walked around the desk and hugged him. He froze. He couldn't remember the last time someone hugged him without fear or obligation. Slowly, carefully, he hugged her back. For the first time in a decade, he felt something other than calculation. He felt gratitude, humility, hope.
The building wasn't massive. It wasn't a casino. It wasn't a luxury tower. But it meant more than any of Adrian Park's previous projects. A modest brick structure stood in the heart of the neighborhood where Amara had once sold flowers. A sign hung above the entrance, the Amara Johnson Community Center, supporting children and families, free after-school tutoring, hot meals, language classes, scholarships, safe spaces. Everything Amara and her grandmother had once needed but couldn't afford. Photographers gathered as a small crowd applauded. Amara, grinning from ear to ear, held the oversized scissors. She cut the ribbon. Applause erupted. Mrs. Johnson stood beside Adrian, dabbing tears from her eyes. "You didn't have to do this," she whispered. "Yes," Adrian said quietly, "I did." Across the courtyard, Amara was already showing other kids the reading room. "They can come here after school," she was explaining proudly. "They can eat, study, and be safe." Adrian watched her. "She saved one life. This center will help hundreds." Mrs. Johnson smiled through tears. "She'd say that makes you even." Adrian shook his head. "She's 9. She doesn't understand how rare she is." He paused. "How rare people like you both are." After the ceremony, Adrian found Amara in the computer room, showing another little girl how to log in. "What do you think?" he asked. "It's perfect," she said without hesitation. "Kids who don't have much can come here and feel important." He smiled. "We made something good." "It's your money," she said. "It's your heart." She studied him carefully. "Mrs. Johnson says you're different now, nicer." He exhaled slowly. "I'm trying to be. It's harder than I thought." "Why?" "Because being kind means seeing people, and once you see them, you can't ignore them anymore." She nodded thoughtfully. "But you're doing it." He knelt so they were eye level. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to help people, like you're helping people now, like I helped you." "You'll be extraordinary at it." He stood. "Whatever you choose, you'll have education, support, every opportunity." "I know." She hugged him again. It was natural now. Easy. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for saving my life and for changing it."
You changed your own life, she replied simply. I just gave you a reason. 1 year later, Adrian sat in the same office where Victor had once plotted his death, but everything was different. The security team was new, carefully vetted. The business had shifted. Cleaner investments, fewer shadows. On his desk, next to financial reports, sat a framed photo. Amara, 9 years old, holding flowers, smiling. The day she saved him. Daniel knocked. Sir, Amara's school called. They want to schedule a meeting. Adrian looked up sharply. Is something wrong? No, sir. She's performing exceptionally well. They're recommending advanced placement. Adrian relaxed. Schedule it. I'll attend. You don't have to go to every school meeting. I want to. He meant it. After Daniel left, Adrian looked at the photo again. A year ago, he had been surrounded by paid protection and still completely vulnerable, isolated by arrogance, blind to humanity. A child he had never noticed had been the only one brave enough to fight for him, not for money, not for recognition, simply because it was right. That truth had shattered every belief he had built his empire on. Trust wasn't weakness, caring wasn't foolish. Some people, rare, extraordinary people, were capable of fearless compassion, and he had almost missed it. His phone buzzed, a message from Mrs. Johnson, a photo of Amara at school, first in her class, beaming with pride. Adrian smiled. He had spent a decade building an empire, but the most meaningful thing he had ever built was this, a relationship with a little girl who refused to stay invisible. Victor was in prison, the corrupt guards were gone, the empire was secure, but none of it mattered much as knowing that somewhere in the city a brilliant young girl was thriving because he had finally listened to the smallest voice, the one everyone else ignored. And sometimes the smallest voice carries the greatest truth.